And we're actually back now.
Actually.
All right. So next on the docket, I get to annoy these guys because I've been talking a lot about Attack on Titan recently.
Yeah, apparently it's a well, I was about to say it's getting spicy. Apparently it's been super spicy since like season 2, but it's like ghost pepper levels now.
To catch people up with my thoughts on Attack on Titan, I liked season one. I had some problems with the character writing, and I didn't like the beginning very much, but I really liked the second half.
Because we had talked about this on the podcast before, did we?
Yes, yeah. We did a segment on me watching up to season two, which, as you guys would recall, I really loved season two, especially for the plot and the intensity, and the characters were getting better. And if listeners will recall, and you guys, going into season three, I was feeling a little bit worried. I was like, man, I really like season two. The direction this is going, I could see me hating season three. And as it turns out, season three has made Attack on Titan one of my favorite anime of all time.
Yeah.
So I
Like
was wrong.
I was gonna say every time an episode has come out this season, you've just gotten like to an entire new level of hype.
Oh yes. Um, at the time of this conversation, we just got the episode called Morning Sun. It is after that big episode, and this was also a big one where they made the decision. I'm going to talk about it later. And I believe there's 4 or 5 more episodes in the season. I, if there's anything greater than what we just witnessed, I'm going to explode. But let's take it back. Let's take it back to Attack on Titan season 3 part 1. This was a 2-part season because there was a break in the middle. Um, and it actually worked out really well because the first half totally encompassed one arc, which back in the day I was told that this would be the worst arc, and I was kind of worried for it. Um, and let's just get into it. I have some notes here to guide my thoughts. So, in the first half of season 3, the arc that's taking place, it focuses a lot on human versus human conflict and politics.
Yeah.
And usually I'm super into it, but some of the writing beats in Attack on Titan had me worried that this would either get dragged out, it would have like awkward, gloomy moments that were over the top, or it just wouldn't be executed well. It was the only time where I was like, man, I hope they stick with the apocalypse zombie storyline, because that's basically what Titans are. They're just really well executed zombies.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like, finish with your premise, don't turn it into a different story.
right, I was really worried. As it turns out, the boring politics stuff was handled within 4 episodes,
Okay.
which I was like, oh, great. And it wasn't even that boring. It actually was pretty interesting. They handled it really fast and really well. And in those episodes, we were still getting really good mystery reveals, which is a really big part of this whole half of the season. There's a ton of shit that's explained to you. Um, Pretty
Yeah, like
much,
it seems like it's mystery the show
it
from all the
is.
stuff I hear.
You know how I praise One Piece for its world building and how well Oda has thought of stuff through ahead of time?
It's like we got that same kind of element going on here.
We have an author that is of the same type of artistry, I guess, where he's really thought this shit through. And it doesn't always land as super hard as One Piece, but like the foreshadowing is insane in this show.
So like
Um,
I feel like the show would probably like reward like a rewatch, right?
it rewards paying attention and rewatches for sure, where so many little scenes are building up to stuff, and like so many stuff that's like something's hidden in the opening that makes sense after you get a reveal, like a world building reveal. um and it's just really rewarding in that sense. um it's This season is especially morally gray. That is a big theme of the show, and why I think Bradley would really like it. There's just so much moral grayness to every side of the conflict in this show, and this season probably hit it the hardest. Uh, which again can lead to I've complained in the past that I'm super into the show, but it was hard to connect with a lot of the characters because I came to realize it wasn't that the character writing was bad, is it's that every once in a while a character will have a dialogue that is just so edgy where it takes you back. It's like, oh come on, did you really say that? Did that have to be here? It's like you're trying so hard. Um, I can spoil ahead of time and say the writers matured so much because by the second half of season 3, these characters are downright great, which is
Yeah,
crazy for me to say because I was like, I like 4 characters in the show. Where by the end of season 3, I'm like, all of these characters are freaking amazing right now.
yeah. Like it sounds like Attack on Titan like gets exclusively better as it goes, and a lot of people already like it from the start.
Right, a lot of people liked it from the start, but I think it was more like the shock value of like you were 1 episode away from like when the plot starts picking up and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
because we talked about Attack on Titan before, and I probably made people hate me. Like I had only watched the first few episodes, and like episode 1, I feel like we were just kind of going for like, oh, ooh, shock value for entertainment, and then like the next 2 episodes, I'm like, oh, so it's just like a high school anime except in the post-apocalypse.
And you're totally right because that's the part of the season I didn't like was
Um,
early on is very
and
military high
eventually they
school.
moved past that,
They do.
so
Yeah.
that's what I'm interested
And
in.
what's funny, Bradley, is that like you talk about high school anime. That arc is like maybe an episode and a half long. Like
Yeah, like Willer said, I was probably 1 episode away from
Yeah,
like, wait a minute, this
because-
anime is fire.
as soon as like they're out of that school, none of that bullshit comes up again. Essentially,
It comes up, but in really satisfying ways, and
Yeah.
but after where you are, Joe. But
yeah, it doesn't like
When
they
they
don't end up going to Titan killing college.
they get degrees in Titan killing.
Yeah.
Okay, back to this arc. I think it's called the Resurgence arc or something like that. There's this scene. There's like this amazing moment where Eren realizes, something someone in the past has done, and the implications of that, and it was haunting, dude. That was the moment where Eren went from being a super annoying main protagonist to an actual likable one. And that is something I never thought I'd say, where I like Eren now as a protagonist.
Man, I'm gonna beam that audio clip back in time to Willer.
Oh, I would punch that guy in the face because I think a lot of people would agree with me. This is actually a pretty common complaint in the fan base that Eren was just angry man, has to yell, all I care about is killing Titans. And he still has that element to him, but he's so much more self-aware and so much more reflective at this point, where it's like, there's still an annoying core to you, but you're dealing with it in such an interesting way that I no longer dislike you and I like you now. I don't love Eren, but like he's done a lot of great things as a season 3.
And that's another thing that you've talked about that is kind of reassuring me about this anime, because it's kind of like Guts and Berserk, who goes from just I'm angry, I'm gonna kill demons, and like he said, eventually we get to a point where he still has that element, but he also has depth now.
Yes.
So like from hearing you and Tyler talk about season 3 over the past week or two, I think it's firmly placed itself in my to watch list. I'm gonna have to give it that second try.
Good, because I feel like you would really like this show. Could be
Yeah.
wrong. I've been wrong before, but I've
I
also
think-
been right.
Yeah.
Right,
The
more
big
than-
whenever I was trying to read was just like I felt like it was just too slow, and I really did not want to be under that lost effect where it just kept on adding up.
Mysteries.
Yeah, and you're just like,
Joe, there's so many answers. I think it's because the anime restructures some scenes and stuff, but like,
I bet because
Jesus Christ,
yeah,
I
because
understand so
also
much
the
about this world.
big thing with One Piece for me is that, and kind of in general, is that it's sometimes hard to figure out like when an author is flying by the seat of his pants and when there's some sort of world building up. Like to me, it's fun to theorize on like One Piece futures because I have confidence in Oda and what he's doing and what he's planned out. Like I know everything he's done is done purposefully. Whereas there are some other series I've watched and people like theorize and like I don't feel like any of these theories matter because they're going like season by season or week by week or whatever.
Well, I feel like there's some merit to that. I feel like that is how some authors leave it. They leave it vague, so you're supposed to fill it in.
Right. It's just
But I also like when it's blatant, like One
Yeah.
Piece and Attack on Titan, stuff like that. Another point I had was this one's thematic. So this first half of the season something I really liked about it is that it's really parent focused, where there's so many plot lines about the sins of the father, or carrying on or rejecting your father's will, or confronting your father. Where the opening in each season, in season 1 and 2, were really bombastic and like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's kill Titans. We're a cool army of cute anime people, and Titans are scary and we're fucking wrecking them. And this season, in this half of the season, the opening doesn't show a single Titan. It is like this slow, like way less hype, but like thematic appropriate opening where it's just a lot of characters reflecting on their past selves, reflecting on their parental figures. And by the end of the arc, I was really impressed with the theming of it, which is something that is, again, it's showing how this author is progressing. And I haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet. Going through this arc that was okay to talk about the arc that blew my fucking mind. It wasn't even okay. It was like a solid 4 out of 5, but this next arc is like bordering 6. So thematically really cool. There's a character called Historia who's a big part of this arc, where I was talking about earlier how some dialogue choices make me roll my eyes, and she has some of those, but overall she's a good character, and I really like the end point that she reaches at this arc. I thought that was perfect. So even though in the beginning, like, she utters the lines, "I'm going to be the worst girl who's ever lived," and I'm like, oh my god,
Oh
shut
boy.
the fuck up.
There's been some middle school girl who watched that, and then the next day she went to school, and she said the exact same line.
There's a
I'm
lot of people who
13,
watch
that's
that. Yes, there's a lot of people who watch that. They're like, "Oh my god, I love Historia. She's so fucking cool." And like, I like her too, but like, that just to show you my tastes, those are the kinds of lines where I'm like, "Come on!" I think his name is Isaiah, the guy who writes this. It's like, that is such an on the nose, weird, like, edgy, forceful line. It's like, ugh. But like, again, her actual character arc is phenomenal this season, so I do like her.
And
She
that's
was
what
a big
matters.
part of it, and that is what matters. Well, I think
Well,
dialogue's important.
it matters a lot.
Um, still, like, yeah, still the theming with her is very strong. This arc has a good way of building tension at the end, where there's a character I was hoping he wouldn't go down a certain path. And he's one of the father figures, and he does, and I was a little disappointed with it, but then the execution of it was great. And then there's another character who is another character's parent, and they have a really weird relationship of how they grew up together and what their relationship adds up to now, and it just ends really somberly. So then the season ends. It ends on a triumphant note, which is really rare for Attack on Titan. And it ends with like this really hopeful beat where it's like, man, they're really making progress in their mission. Their next goal is going to be this huge milestone in the series. Everything is going great, and I get this feeling in my stomach where I'm just like, I've never seen a death flag for an arc. I believe I said those exact words to you guys, where you get this feeling that this next arc is fucking doomed. One Piece has that going on right now, and Joe knows what I'm talking about. Where certain events are just doomed from the get-go, and you just know it, and you're waiting for the shit show. That's how I felt about this arc. And they fucking jump scared me with this, where in episode 12, it's the last episode before the second half of the season starts. And keep in mind, there was a 6-month gap or something in between these. And in the ending credits, they splice in this like horror jump scare where it cuts to the climax of the next arc out of context. And it is such a jarring cut and jump where it really freaked me out as I was watching it at night. I was like, God, I was not expecting this. And it just gets you wondering, like, what the hell's going to happen to lead up to that moment. And I thought it was a really cool decision, because we get to finally talk about this next arc. Holy shit, man. The second arc of season 3 is really strong. It's very action, strategy, and conflict driven. And there's not much I can say about it without really spoiling. There's a lot of themes about human sacrifice, like in a positive way of like, you're going to give your life for the greater good, and it's the best the theming and the writing for that has ever been. Um, the characters mature greatly in this arc. The writing of the conflict is tense, and there's ebbs and flow of, okay, now the good guys have the upper hand, and oh shit, literally the worst thing that could possibly happen. Um, and just a lot of good flow with that. Like I said, it just makes you really invested from the get go. It's just from episode one, it's just fire. Like it just goes, and it's still going. Um, but it's definitely the strongest character season, and I think me and Tyler, rest in peace, Tyler, our special guest, uh, are super into it right now. We really want to see. Well, I feel like the climax has happened, but somehow there's more episodes coming up, and these are going to be very big exposition mystery episodes, which are some of the best in the series because the plot is the best part. But now I'm also invested in the characters, and God, there's just so many scenes that I really can't talk about, but there's some fucking crushing deaths. There are some badass action scenes. And there's this decision, this moral dilemma that they set up in the most recent episode where that episode was a work of art. The episode before it was the hypest shit where, like, I think I sent it to you guys earlier today. It is now the most highest rated episode of anything on IMDb.
Shit.
Which is nuts. The rest of the top 5 is like all Game of Thrones episodes, which means the list is invalid because it doesn't have Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
episodes.
all 5 aren't Breaking Bad, which
that's fine. It's still a cool little factoid, even if it doesn't mean anything. But it's the number 1, and for a reason. The episode called Hero is an incredible rise of hype and then gut punch of depression, and it's just done really well. And there's a lot of times where the author tries to go, he struggled with themes, or with tone rather, in the past, where he struggled to go from positive and hype to dark and moody, and I feel like he struck the perfect balance with this arc. So many big characters finally getting the conflict that's been built up. Like, a lot of build up has been to this arc, and it delivered. And again, this moral dilemma was freaking crushing, where both sides were right, and it's like having to choose between, are you going to save Captain America or Tony Stark?
Yeah.
And it's like, one of these is 51% right, and one of these is 49% right. And in my opinion, they went with the right one, both narratively and in the world.
And I imagine the fan base is just like going nuts over it.
It's the moral dilemma is so fucking good that everyone seems to accept it. They're like, man, I don't know if I would have done that, but I'm okay with this. It's really impressive. From what I've seen in the discussion threads, he created this scenario and dilemma where everyone is very accepting and they all understand the reason, and they're all just excited to see what's next.
Picked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did not hear you.
What the fuck you saying?
He created a situation where regardless of what you picked, you lost. And that always creates a more interesting scenario than whichever one you pick, you kind of win.
Yeah.
Because it's
deeper than that even. Yeah. I don't know.
It's like, what are you willing to lose?
There's so much lost and so much gained. That's never mind.
We'll see. We'll find out when we get there.
I really hope some of you guys can jump on. It's not perfect. I'm totally in love with this arc, but you know, it's always gonna have its moments. Like, there was this one character this episode who he has so much fucking plot armor where he's escaped certain death like 3 times, and like that gets on your nerve. But then another character that has had similar plot armor, but he finally went down, and you feel bittersweet about that. And there's a character who just showed up out of nowhere for this moral dilemma, but like it worked, but it was like pretty jarring. Yeah, man. It's up there with Hunter x Hunter and JoJo's and Death Note as animes I like. Now, you know, I'm more of a manga boy, so if you factor in the mangas, it might not be top 5 anymore if you do anime plus manga, but it's probably still top 10, even if you factor both. I'm into it. From what I hear, the next arcs are supposed to be even better. So if somehow it keeps getting better, then yeah, it's gonna stay there. And if it gets worse, it's not gonna drop that much farther because I've really enjoyed. Now, granted, this is the kind of series where if the ending's really shitty, it could Game of Thrones it. But I'm holding out for hope. Because the journey's been really fun. And yeah, that is Attack on Titan. After the season's over, I can do a quickie impression as well.